Welcome in to another episode of Betting the Pitch NFL edition. I am your host, real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, and Twitter. We have Andrew Schnicker, A_SCHNITKER on Twitter. If you're not following me already, please go ahead, go forth, do that. Schnitty, it's been a little while since we potted, but our last podcast we did go 2-0 in our best bets, and it was actually a really nice 2-0 for me. Because you had kind of faded. Well, I didn't say I was doing it, but you took the Rams, and they
You've been
covered as
fading me a lot lately.
well. I've been having some good, incredible. I mean, I don't know what it's like in a world where you bet favorites a lot, but they seem to have the most miraculous covers, including the Eagles this past weekend and the
Yeah.
Ravens back-to-back games going from the Sunday night or Sunday afternoon prime time. Felt like Sunday night in the East Coast because it was dark the whole time. And then Sunday Night Football, a go down, go down, go down. Zay Flowers decided he wanted a touchdown and had a dance planned or a proposal or throwing a bouquet because his last name's Flowers. And that covered the spread. Didn't work so well with the Vikings last night, unfortunately. How have you felt about this onslaught of favorites just covering spreads they shouldn't?
Well, we're in that part of the year though. Like we're starting to see it's no mystery, right? The favorites are considered the better teams, and oftentimes they are. But we're talking about those two circumstances, especially with the Eagles and the Ravens, two of the better teams in the NFL.
Indeed.
But then some of the teams at the bottom are seriously bottoming out. You're seeing this massive discrepancy, and I feel like the market this week, from a lot of the opens to where a lot of games are at now, there's just been some massive reaction already.
Yeah, disappointing. It's going to be that time of year where every underdog is priced probably a field goal higher than they should be. Yet I'm going to do my best to keep my hands out of the cookie jar because it's actually a bear trap, and I don't want to be missing any sort of digits in this economy. So we're going to go through the six-pack of matches, soccer pods all over me, man. We're going to go a six-pack of games because that's what we call it here in the United States. We're going to go through the primetime games. Plus, we'll also give you a San Francisco 49ers at Philadelphia Eagles, plus two mystery games. So stay tuned for that. We'll have best bets end of show. If you're not a member of my Patreon yet, check it out, patreon.com. It's real_G Warner. If you're not on BetOnline or SportsBetting.ag, we have promo codes in the podcast description wherever you're listening. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. That works for Spotify as well. Anything you read on there, I'll let Andrew Schnicker read it. So make sure it's as foul-mouthed as possible. I haven't seen anything yet, but I'll let Schnitty look and see if there's something I can then pitch his way to read live without preparation. But the Thursday matchup is actually important, where I'm sitting in Dallas potentially for what Andrew Schnicker's hometown team, the Cows, as he called them, which I always thought it was the boys, but I guess I've been wrong. The Seattle Seahawks are visiting, and it looks like we've opened at -6. Here's that field goal coming a lot higher on the underdog on the road. So Dallas opened -6 with a total of 45.5. We are now at -9 with a total at 46.5. So only 1 point on the total, but 3 points on the spread. Why are the Cowboys that much better than the Seahawks? Because both played on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so you're going to have normal rest. There's no advantage there, and so you should actually have a pretty good game in terms of actual game planning, and not just, hey, let's run the ball as much as possible on a 3-day week. I think a lot of this has to do with Geno Smith's health and really his performance overall over the last couple of weeks hasn't been very good. Seahawks, their offensive line is showing a lot of cracks. Their run defense had been very good, not playing as well. So yeah, I think you're starting to see the true side of the Seahawks right now, and paired with Geno Smith's health. I mean, like last week with the 49ers game, it was so obvious that he's struggling to throw the football. So Dallas is a front running team. When they're playing like scrubs, they run it up. The last 3 weeks they get Washington, they've gotten Carolina, they got the Giants, and they're putting up 40 points each time. But whenever they face a team that actually has a pulse, that's when the coaching advantages and everything else go in favor of the opposition. I don't I see this more along the lines of where the Cowboys have been in terms of a team that they are more talented than, and probably coaching. That's not a. I wouldn't say that it's a mismatch there either.
It's
Um,
certainly a mismatch in gum chewing, but
oh my
from
gosh, did you see
so
him chuck his gum and nearly take out a dude's face?
I didn't, but that was probably the part where I was asleep after the tryptophan hit. But I'm sure Pistol Pete ran and gobbled it up because he can't leave a piece of Wrigley's spearmint behind.
What do you
Actually,
think?
I shouldn't say any brands because they're not sponsoring us. But Wrigley's, if you want to come in here, let us know. So you're calling the Seahawks a bad team is basically what you're saying to me.
I mean, I
Especially
would.
because go ahead.
They're not. I wouldn't say, hey, they're not as bad as the Panthers and the Giants and
Okay, so they haven't fired their head coach in the middle
right.
of
They're
the
not like
season,
bottom,
or
but I would say they're very comfortable in that middle tier, and their quarterback's not healthy. So yeah,
yeah, you could argue potentially a little bit shorter rest because Dallas played the game before on Thursday. I mean that might be semantics at this point. Dallas, I think, is getting a lot of love. Also, that they might steal this division from Philadelphia. That seems hard to me. Or could be one of those public darlings that head into the playoffs, take one of those visits to the Atlanta Falcons or whoever the heck decides they want to go 7-10 to win the NFC South. I'm very interested because I'm really just rooting for victory parades in the towns I live in. I thought the Rangers were going to get one, but then they had the parade in Arlington. I imagine the Arlington Cowboys will probably do the same thing. So unfortunately, that probably will not solve that problem. So we'll skip to Sunday Night Football. I guess no, we probably should just go straight to that 425 America's Game of the Week on Fox. It doesn't look like a standalone game, thank God. But actually, there are only three, so you might as well call it a standalone game. We'll go to that San Francisco at Philadelphia, which actually opened Philadelphia a 1.5 point favorite with a total at 45.5. That total has climbed to 46.5. Seems like all the totals are climbing 1 point so far. But San Francisco is now a 3 point favorite, even money. So all the juice right now on Philadelphia at home. As a Philadelphia backer and also a fader, if you want to call it that, from their last two matchups, felt like I should have been at least 1-1, and that's what I was given by the gambling gods. I don't necessarily know how Kansas City didn't win that game against Philadelphia on Monday night, but then turn around, Philadelphia literally trails throughout. I think probably we're never covering the spread until they scored a touchdown in overtime after a misread from the highest rated turnover quarterback in the NFL. But we're staying with Philadelphia here. Jalen Hurts got a lot of QB design runs that didn't really seem to help a banged up knee. Still confused by a lot of those, though he did win the game on one of those. So I guess maybe if the sixth time it'll eventually work. San Francisco's been dominant. There's a lot of time that Philadelphia's defense was left on the field. Unfortunately, going into overtime, plus losing the time of possession battle by a million seconds, it seemed. And San Francisco played Thursday night while I was napping. So ultimately, or at least I think that was only the third quarter. But so they've got a rest advantage, though they're traveling to Philadelphia. This is all on this Philadelphia crowd. If they can win this matchup, upset San Francisco, then I guess we crown it as the sports city of all time, all world, all galaxy.
yeah, yeah. I think everyone's just scoffing at the 10-1 Eagles doing a 3 point home underdog. It feels a little stinky, right?
Oh, I mean, it would, I guess, in some worlds, and certainly I'm sure a bunch of friends of mine will say, hey, can I bet the Eagles today?
Yeah.
Randomly, and I'm like, how many NFL bets have you made this year? And they'll say none. That is usually a good sign when
You,
that's
Blake.
yeah. Well, I think he's actually worried about affording his wedding that's coming up. So
Hey,
we'll see
he's
about
getting
how.
married?
Apparently, I guess you got to check the Instagrams because then you'll learn.
Okay.
I've made the mistake of not doing that, and I don't want to say any names, but we'll keep this one going. We'll go back to the tracks. Let's keep the train on those tracks. So the Niners are a 3 point favorite at Bet Online, where I'm quoting lines from. There's a 50% bonus if you sign up there through our promo code link. Go do that. Go get free money to use to bankrupt the casino. They probably wouldn't like me hearing that or saying that, but anyway, that's all of our goals. So at what price does San Francisco interest you? Are you potentially looking to back Philadelphia at +3? I'll give you my thoughts on the Eagles and my very close standalone game watching of their last two meetings, because they were the only game on cable television or whatever television I stream on in the last two windows they played.
All right, well, I'll take the 49ers. The
Okay.
defense has taken a couple chinks in the armor, losing a piece in the secondary, but still one of the best. And I think having the two defensive ends with Bosa and Chase Young, with a defensive, like that whole defensive line is just adding Chase Young by himself. It exponentially makes that defense more dangerous. And so that's my favorite matchup to watch is Jalen Hurts with, I would say probably 85% healthy, 90% healthy. How mobile will he be, and how much is he going to be in for the chase with those two guys? No pun intended with Chase.
Ah!
I still like this 49ers offense. I think it's still been very good. Purdy had lost a little bit of shine a couple weeks ago, but QBR was near perfect last week, I think. And as long as you have McCaffrey there to do everything, then I love the 49ers offense as well. I would love to have a bet on San Francisco right now, not at +3. I wish I would have gotten in while the whole world was moving this line.
I was really hoping, probably in a pipe dream type of world, that San Francisco would be about pick 'em, maybe with all the juice to pick 'em. That, of course, did not occur. Maybe if we had seen all this ahead of time and gotten into that opener number, which I'm trusting some lines. So who knows if that's actually an accurate number that you could bet more than $10 into. We'll see. But we've been doing this all year on this podcast, so we're going to keep going that way. But I think San Francisco look really great. I normally want to buy a team that's undervalued at home that are getting more points than I think they deserve, or at least more points than I was expecting, including that full field goal. I think I've had enough of the Philadelphia train the last 2 weeks, though, and so I think I'll be looking elsewhere to try to potentially stack my millions. Moving to Sunday Night Football, we have Kansas City at Green Bay. I was thinking about going to this game, but instead I think I'm going to go to that Big 12 championship, last one that hopefully will go in our favor. Andrew and I, both Texas alums. KC opened a 7-point favorite at Green Bay with a total of 41.5. It has fallen to 6.5, but the total has climbed to 42. No one's betting unders, apparently. So Green Bay, this time of year, weather could be an issue. Kansas City got off to a really bad start, but if you just saw the box score or saw the final score, you wouldn't have known that. The Raiders, I think, were up 14-0, or at least something to nothing, and it was more than one score, including, I think, a missed field goal as well. Green Bay, on the other hand, looked great. Upset Detroit, made some sensors go off. Detroit, really bad performance against Chicago, and then also against Green Bay, but then Chicago looked really good on Monday night. At least they silenced Minnesota and the Josh Dobbs astronaut talk. So thank you to them for that. What do we think about Jordan Love? Has he turned a corner where you think he's backable, basically getting a touchdown? Probably will get a touchdown by the time this kicks off on Sunday Night Football next Sunday.
Yeah, he's definitely looked better. He looked great on Thursday. I mean, the whole knock on him was kind of any pass actually downfield was either intercepted or a terrible incompletion. And Thursday against the Lions, he was great. He was smooth. He was connecting, and like that. That's got to be his best performance as an NFL quarterback. So what are we buying? Or are we saying, okay, this is now the new standard? Is this the norm? Detroit was weird, and plus with some turnovers there, Goff. I feel like the Lions lost that game. As good as as good as Jordan Love was, I feel like the Lions lost that game with some terrible turnovers and giving up free points there. The Chiefs defense to me is still very, very good. I think like this is going to be a different kind of experience for Jordan Love again. Yeah, we can keep talking about how the offense is underperforming for the Chiefs, but like this defense is for real, and it's not going to be as easy as it was Thursday against the Lions.
Yeah, and it's funny because we thought that the Lions had a good defense coming into that, and they were installed as a pretty, what I thought was sizable favorite. I think it was around a field goal on the road at Green Bay the first time that matchup happened. I think it was on Thursday night. Short week, quick turnaround, and I was very excited that I did not put push submit on my Green Bay Packers bet way back when.
I did push some that.
It's funny how the change that completely changed, though turnover certainly changed things. I still feel like Jared Goff, any sort of respect for him as a quarterback, despite the amount of money he's made in his career. He's, and I guess, winning a Super Bowl. I think or was that Stafford? So it wasn't him.
He made it to the Super Bowl.
He made it to the Super Bowl. But you know what they call it? If you're not first, you're last. Shake and bake. Anyway, I think Kansas City as a 6.5-point favorite will climb to 7. I don't know that I'll have anything to do with this because I'm still in a no road favorites idiot rule. If you saw my tweet on Sunday night about the Ravens, however, I considered all games in Los Angeles not to be road games. So road favorites are alive there and are of interest to me moving forward. But I don't really know what to do with this one. I think if you back Green Bay, you hope for really bad weather, but that probably plays into Kansas City's defense advantage. And I would trust Patrick, far more than I trust Jordan Love. But you got to take a baby step. You got to crawl before you run, according to all the parents out there. So maybe this is Jordan Love finally showing that he can actually be a capable quarterback. And we'll move to Monday night, which is Cincinnati at Jacksonville. Look like a really nice matchup for a potential 1 seed. I think Jacksonville are in second in the AFC behind the Ravens right now. At least at one point it looked that way.
Log jam up at the top there. But
yes, log jam. A very nice description for a fantasy league I'm in with everyone whose record is right this point.
I'm in that league, I think.
You are actually not.
Not that league?
I think I'm dead in both of them though, so it doesn't really matter. I'm not even in the logs.
What people love is when we talk about fantasy.
They do.
It's fantasy leagues.
They do. So that's why you stay tuned to Betting the Pitch for our best bets. They're coming end of show. So Cincinnati opened a 6.5-point underdog on the road at Jacksonville with a total of 41.5. That total has plummeted. Considering all these totals are climbing, this is down to 38, and the spread is 8.5 right now. So not a lot of respect for the coming of Jake Browning or whatever he's doing out there. Assume he's starting. And from Jacksonville, they played a pretty tough matchup, had a big lead with Houston. Seemed like that game was going back and forth, almost a match again. Yikes. But Jacksonville have looked really good against teams that they're better than, have not looked good against teams that are better than them. I don't really know what to do with Cincinnati, but they seem to be a completely different team that seemed to answered all those questions with a healthy Joe Burrow. But unfortunately, now that he's gone for the year, I don't know how you back them even getting 8.5 points here on Monday night.
The only thing that I want to see what's happening with Jacksonville's Cam Robinson, their offensive tackle, one of my favorite players right now. When Jacksonville was starting slow earlier this year, Robinson was out, and then he comes back and the offense starts clicking. You've got all your wide receivers back, which is opening up Calvin Ridley a little bit more. But yeah, the Bengals, that game, I watched way too much of that Steelers-Bengals game, more than I'd like to admit. And it was still amazing to me that Cincinnati kind of had a chance at the end where they were still within a score because they looked so lost, and the Steelers really could have had a comfortable win there. So I feel like that's what the market is telling you, is that, okay, what we just saw from the Bengals is what we're going to see for the rest of the year. And Jacksonville, good win against a team that they've struggled with so often in the division against the Texans. But yeah, this one isn't feeling perfectly. It doesn't make sense to me yet. I'm not seeing it yet because I want to know with the health of the offensive line for the Jags, because Trevor Lawrence needs a clean pocket.
He does, but how is Cincinnati going to score 14 points? I feel like, yes, they were facing a good Pittsburgh defense last week. Jacksonville's probably not on the same level of defensive line as Pittsburgh, but I feel like they've had some pretty impressive defensive performances so far this season. I'm trying to live by this rule that if you have a bad quarterback, just don't even think about it. But then I also bet Danny DeVito last weekend. So
Danny DeVito, I love that.
What can I really say? Yes, Danny. He will forever be Danny DeVito, or New Jersey guy, Taylor Ham, or whatever you call it. But Now we've gotten through our 4 primetime games as we elevated the San Francisco at Philadelphia game of the week to a primetime game. Shindy, you want to do surprise Magic 8 Ball stuff. So you pick a game and then I'll pick one, and then we'll give our best bets and give the people some winners.
Well, then I think my second favorite game, I don't love the primetime. The primetime games are fun, and we got to talk about them, I know. But Broncos at Texans, to me, that's one of my really intriguing games because CJ Stroud is like must watch TV now. I love watching him play. It's pretty incredible watching him from college where he looked good mostly. And then we saw him in the college football playoff against Georgia, and I was like, oh, this dude's legit. If he can play like
He's
this.
a bad man. Well, before we get into
So,
fanboy area, the Texans opened a 3-point favorite. They're now
yeah.
3.5-point favorites. Total is 44.5, has climbed to 47. I don't know what Denver offense they've seen to want to climb or make that total 2.5 points higher and only make the Texans a 0.5 point bigger of a favorite. But I'll let you go back.
Oh, you want me to keep going with my
Though
CJ
Cam
Stroud?
Robinson is probably pretty jealous that you're going to get his 74 jersey and then somehow wear a Stroud helmet on top of it.
I have many favorites, and they're all on the offensive line. Those guys deserve all the credit. So yeah, let's
really
go.
Weird swimsuit calendars in your bedroom, I gotta say.
Madison is very confused. Okay, it's at Houston. Texans now have they've become just like this team that is a favorite almost every week. I mean, it's and then you have the Broncos who just demolished Cleveland, a shell of Cleveland that just kept getting injured and more injured and more injured after that. But they're winning. Earlier this year, we were just piling on with the Broncos, just like with everyone else. But man, I have to take some of my criticism back with Sean Payton with what he's been able to do. It's nothing like it's nothing fancy. Like there's still there's a huge talent gap. There's a talent issue there. But they know they're going to run the football, and they know even if it's not totally efficient, they're going to stick with that identity. And Russell Wilson is at least getting them out of some jams, and the defense. I think the interesting part to me, I guess, is let's break it down this way. The Broncos, every single game recently, they've shortened the game, trying to kill the clock, keep their defense fresh, and pull out some ugly wins. And potentially this is a game they probably could do if they're able to do the same kind of thing. You get CJ Stroud out of rhythm after I've just been gushing about him. You keep the offense off the field a little bit more. I could see this game being a frustrating one for the Texans. Do you have any thoughts, since this was my surprise pick?
I mean, I got thoughts. Okay. When I look at the spread here, it seems pretty much anything above a field goal now is wow, this team at home is better than the other team. And I would tend to agree that the audience, the footballing world, is probably gushing over Stroud and his performance and potential rookie of the year candidacy, all that sort of stuff. Compared to Denver, who are not really getting many points here. Yes, it's above a field goal, but still not so many. When you score a touchdown and get 6 plus an extra point, if you get 1, you get 7. I know. Just the economics of football here on Betting the Pitch NFL edition. But I don't know how. So Denver covers this game if Amendola kicks for 55 yards at the end of the game, apparently, to win as opposed to tie like he did last weekend. I do like 2 straight home games for Houston as well. I think that's probably a good situation. I think that helps across all sports. But I worry that Denver has no chance in a shootout. So they're going to do exactly what you said. They're going to run the clock out from dawn till dusk. They're going to be running clock. They'll be sitting on the ball. They'll be faking injuries, soccer style. But at least there are some rules against that in this sport. Houston on the other side, I feel like are going to want to open this up. And I do wonder if there's a little bit of a naivete or something like that with this Houston team, because they think they're going to be able to score on anybody. And potentially they're going to not be able to do that against Denver and have to figure out how to win. And their record looks good, though they did kind of let Jacksonville off the hook last weekend, I felt. I don't know. This seems to me like a prove it game for Houston. We saw them a 4-point favorite when we talked a lot about it against the lowly Cardinals in Kyler Murray's second game back off the injured list, PUP list, whatever we want to call it. And then it climbed to 6, and they kind of had a lead the whole time, but struggled. And then they were a slight underdog, I think, to Jacksonville last weekend. There's not a ton of respect from the marketplace, but this is probably some of the most respect they've gotten against a competent team so far. So this might be one of those Houston, like, have you been here before? And you really haven't. So I could see the interest in Denver from a lot of perspectives. I worry that I don't know how you can trust Denver getting such a little spread with so few weapons that are actually usable. Their quarterback that ran 11 times, Javonte Williams ran for 16. I'm sure they had McLaughlin running a bunch as well, but like Russell Wilson getting a bunch of carries, like I feel like Ciara's got a better 40 time than he does right now. So I don't know what to say about this one. I feel like if you like Denver, maybe you want to go under 47 because you're expecting it to be a tighter game and you have a little bit more safety there. Because I don't know how Denver, if they're going to cover the spread, how they do it in a shootout fashion, because they really haven't done it in a while. And it's amazing how many teams are on bye week this week, considering how few games there are on this slate. So unless you have a rebuttal or something you want to say, I'll go to my, go ahead.
No, I am interested just looking at the totals market in general. Like this whole season has been it's been an underfest. Every game is going under, not every game, but it is a massive split right now. And the primetime games, especially, you can't win. I think Monday Night Football is like 1-12.
Ooh, I didn't notice that. Okay.
Over. Like it, so I am interested when we're talking about these numbers moving, most of them going up. Is someone out there saying, okay, we've hit the level, and like there's no way we can just keep going under in every single game. Like these numbers keep dropping and dropping, and so at some point, like it's gonna have to tip back. But anyways, yeah, it's really fascinating to see the way that the totals market has changed.
Yeah, catch that flying knife instead of falling knife. Totals NFL totals market, if that's what you're interested in. It still goes through your hand, no matter which way, up or down. So I would not recommend that if you like overs. Maybe you want to pick a different profession. Come to soccer, where goalkeepers will kick the ball in their own net or something of that.
You'll get 20 minutes of stoppage time. So it's great.
Yes, exactly. So let's go. There is no overtime, so that does limit things a little bit, but not enough for me, unfortunately. So I'm going to go for my biggest interest, and that's the Detroit Lions visiting New Orleans Saints. Opened at Detroit -3 with a total of 44.5. It has climbed to Detroit -4 and a total of 46. There are some injury concerns. Olave left early, I think, with a concussion in the third quarter. It doesn't seem like many guys are coming back from concussions that same week. That's a concern. Michael Thomas, I think, is injured. So there's a potential limit. I think Shaheed limped off, right? So
yep.
There's some concerns in the offense there. So maybe that's why this price is a little bit higher. But from a Detroit standpoint, I mean, yes, Chicago looked incredible winning a game with 4 field goals yesterday on Monday Night Football. But recording this Tuesday night, so we get this all into your people's hands, earbuds, AirPods, Bose headphones, whoever's sponsoring the podcast, getting those out to you as quickly as possible. Really, and what we're trying to do is project where numbers move and when to buy in. Like if you'd grabbed the Rams at Snickers' last best bet as an underdog, you win. And if you grabbed the Seahawks at the close, like I did, you win. We're trying to get more of those going. But we've already seen Detroit climb up a little bit. I feel like early in the week moves rarely reverse, but I don't have the stats on that. So I'm wondering what this will do to make me feel. I mean, I'm not a believer in Detroit. I feel like they have had 2 bad performances in a row. Yes, in division, but ultimately were pretty bad to a point where I'm concerned about them. And I feel like the jump, kind of like we just talked about with the Texans, when you jump from having pretty low expectations, low performance levels, and things of that nature, that it's hard to then all of a sudden become the king and stay at the top of the mountain, which they're not even there yet. They're just climbing. New Orleans is a great home field advantage, very minimal in the NFL in this day and age, but I feel like it's more there. There's the argument that Jared Goff is awesome in domes, but we've seen that sort of start to correct. And I don't know that away domes are the same as his home domes. So I'm hoping that Jared Goff doesn't get any dome because that would be uncomfortable. But I just feel like the Saints getting 4 points right here against a struggling Detroit team, that it's a long season. It's hard to keep playing well every week. How do you feel about the Saints here, and how do you feel about Detroit, and if they're actually not falling off the mountaintop, like I said?
I think what I would start with is the Detroit offensive line has to be better. They were it wasn't all Jared Goff's fault. It was a pretty hefty part of that game. Thursday was Jared Goff's fault, but the offensive line it was awful. Just gave him no time, which led to some of those turnovers. We've talked a lot about the Saints defense. I'm a believer in it. I like the pieces that they have, even though if they're a little bit older than probably what you'd like. They're on their way down, but they'll be able to get after him. Yeah, I never thought I was going to be a Lions like supporter this year. I just felt, after the market, there's no way we could go higher, and then they win that first game against the Chiefs, and they've proven me wrong in multiple situations. This feels like a spot where they should be able to get right, even though it's on the road. And yes, it's in New Orleans, and it's not an easy place to play. I just don't know what we're going to be able to see from the Saints offense. Like, it's a defensive minded coach. Everything is focused on the defense. Derek Carr can't throw it more than 5 yards down the field, and has no other receivers he can't go deep to any of the guys that have any sort of speed or weapons deep. So this feels very much more in Detroit's realm. Last week they were, that was comfortable. I mean, like, Packers missing Aaron Jones and all sorts of other guys. So I'm not going to have anything on this, but I'm interested to see, because I can feel like we can learn a lot more about Detroit and how they respond to something like this against a team that they should beat handily.
Yeah, the New Orleans road favorite, I think that
Yeah.
experience might be over, unfortunately. I don't know that I've made enough money against it so far. I did like the Falcons last week. I liked the Vikings maybe a month ago when they're a home dog to New Orleans. I feel like, unfortunately, New Orleans has been pretty vulnerable as a favorite away. Don't really know when they're ever not a vulnerable team, and they seem extra vulnerable with their entire wide receiver room on the injury report or potentially missing this game, which might come in a perfect time for Detroit to potentially get a big win on the road. Big win, whether it's by a lopsided amount or just to get a win to potentially change their momentum. And then, since everyone's still here, it's time to go to our best bets. So before you do that, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave a 5-star review. Write something in the comments. I will let Andrew Schnicker read it. Make sure you're following him on Twitter. If you're not following me, @the_real_G Warner on Twitter, do that. Or check out my Patreon, patreon.com/@the_real_G Warner. Follow @_SCHNITKER. That's the spelling. I know sometimes the German last names are difficult, but there's one for you. So Shinny, lead us off if you got a best bet, which I know you do.
I might be taking yours, truly.
Go ahead. You're not.
What? Really?
I don't think you are.
Okay. Well, then let's go.
We don't talk about these beforehand. This is live.
Let's
LIVE.
go. It's a noon kick for the Central Time Zone. One of Griffin's favorite teams.
Oh.
Let's go with the Tennessee Titans.
Oh, yeah, baby.
+1 at home against the Indianapolis Colts. I go back to the first matchup between these two teams and Tennessee's inability to make any smart decisions in the red zone. They had 3 separate chances. 2 of them ended in 4th down failures, and one of them ended in a missed field goal, I believe, or a turnover. So I guess I've been against the Colts several times this year, and actually to most success. I've picked my spots pretty well. Still not a believer in that. This really has nothing to do with Jonathan Taylor being out for several weeks, because Zach Moss is fine and running backs, whatever. This has more to do with, I think Will Levis should have a pretty good game here. The Colts secondary is more than willing to boost quarterback numbers, and the guy's got a really strong arm. The accuracy, the efficiency, the decisions, still a work in progress for him. But I like this, the division matchup at home. This seems like a perfect spot for Tennessee. on their quest to go 500 for however many years in a row.
Dang, I'm jealous. I kind of wish I had picked that one, but I have another one in mind. And I'm actually very interested because I was kicking myself for not playing Tennessee this past weekend as a short. I think they were 3.5 point favorites at kickoff against the Panthers, who did just fire their coach. I think one of the first times that an NFL coach in his first season has been fired mid-season. But that's what you get when you work for whatever the investor guy that's taking them over. So love that pick. So I guess it's time. This is Betting the Pitch, NFL edition. Your host, 3_G Warner. You just heard A_SCHNITKER, Andrew Schnicker. He went with the Tennessee Titans, a 1-point underdog at home on Sunday. Tempted to double best bet that one, but I'm going to go a little bit different. My pick of our 6-pack. Tune in if you haven't listened to our podcast or watched it or whatever. I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints under 46. Totals climb from 44.5 to 46. I don't like Detroit. I don't think that New Orleans have, if you listen to the podcast, we have big concerns about New Orleans wide receiver room and don't really think they're going to move the ball very much this weekend. So I think this is going to be a tough game. I think Detroit might not get out of there with a win despite a very depleted New Orleans offense. It's another opportunity for Jared Goff to struggle on the road, even if it's in a dome, indoors, whatever, as I try to say both at the same time. So grab the Titans +1 for Andrew Schnicker's best bet and grab New Orleans under 46 for mine as we try to go for 2-0 a second straight week. And that'll do it for this episode of Betting the Pitch NFL edition. Thank you for tuning in. Glad to be back with one of my best friends in the world. We'll be back next Tuesday. I don't want to jinx it, but I expect to be back next Tuesday or at least sometime next week. Hopefully one more time this year. Just kidding. We got a lot left to go in this season, a lot of money to be made. And I feel like I'm hitting my stride, just betting these favorites that don't deserve to cover. It's a really weird scenario and probably is one that I will not continue for too much longer. But thank you for joining me, Andrew. And everyone, go give him a follow on Twitter if you haven't already. A_SCHNITKER. And then I will stop spelling it from now on. And thank you, Cam Robinson, for your support of the podcast. I'm sure the jersey is in the mail.